Hi, everyone. My name is Stephen Kilger. I'm the managing editor of Feed and Grain magazine and the host of the Feed and Grain podcast. Thank you so much for joining me today as we dive deep into the issues affecting the feed manufacturing, grain handling, and allied industries. Today, I'm speaking with Carlton Skipper, the Southeast Regional Manager for Viacam. We're here to talk about how to perform mycotoxin testing at feed mills in order to get the best results for you and your staff. Before we start, if you're listening to this podcast in a podcasting app, please rate us and subscribe. If you're listening online, sign up for the Feed and Grain newsletter, Industry Watch, to see the latest podcasts and stay up to date with all the latest news from around the industry. Thank you so much for listening. Now, on to the show. Thanks for coming and being on the podcast. Would you mind telling me and the listeners a little bit more about yourself and what you do in the industry?
Yes. Hi, my name is Carlton, last name Skipper, and I am with Viacam, and I am the Southeast Regional Manager for the region, concentrating mostly on the Southeast area of the United States for test kits, equipment, and mycotoxin solutions.
Thank you for being here today, Carlton. We really appreciate it. Can you provide a little bit of an overview on the importance of mycotoxin testing in feed mills, even in grain elevators, and how that can impact the quality and safety of grain and feed products?
Well, the importance of testing at the feed mill is essential. You're looking at incoming ingredients coming into the facility that need to be checked, and then they're basically from there they're going to be housed and they're going to be stored and either used at the facility and or processed for other things such as feed. And it's very important that all along that way that the integrity of the product is checked and it's good for either human consumption or for animal feed. And that's the task at hand when you're looking at testing at the level of the feed mills.
So what are some of the advantages and challenges in implementing mycotoxin testing directly at feed mills? And how does this approach impact like the speed and efficiency of decision makings as you have new loads coming in and it's harvest time and everything's busy? How does that kind of work?
Well, I think at the level of incoming, there's an awareness of the dangers associated with mycotoxin contamination, and it's led the feed mills to say that they need to be doing this testing. They know that. And as they seek out the solutions, I think with that comes challenges. And I think from a standpoint of all the way from testing the incoming, the receiving, all the way through load out, and that becomes an issue of when do we test, how do we test, and the frequency of testing. So these are the challenges that are at the mill, if you will, and having that conversation with the locations is where do we start? You know, where do we have that discussion of where's their pain points? What are they testing for? How are they testing now? And how we can provide alternative solutions.
Sure. And could you discuss some of the technologies and methods that are being used now out there in the field? What type of tests are people normally doing at a feed mill?
Well, the testing methodologies have really taken a turn for the better, if you will, over the course of years. It's gone from where they were utilizing black light technology to today where the advancements in technique have led to lateral flow tests, tests that utilize non-toxic materials. So there are many different applications. You have your lateral flow quick tests that are out there available, all the way through fluorometric testing, all the way to HPLC, and it all and mass spec, which is at the laboratory. And it all depends where that particular customer is or end user is. If they're a smaller type organization, They may be using just a lateral flow type test that gives them a quick, reproducible answer that gives them a good indicator of what they're dealing with when it comes to mycotoxin contamination. There are many different providers out there of testing, but very few that offer the breadth of companies such as Vicam that has a incoming test all the way through to the end test, which is at the laboratory confirmatory test. So there's many different solutions out there today.
Yeah, I mean, I've been in the industry for 11 years now, I think, and everything's changed so much, even in my time. It seems like there have been rapid advancements in both the quality of these tests and how accurate they are. I remember Cargill, right? They put out that big world mycotoxin report. What was that, a few months ago? And they're not sure if mycotoxins and grains are, on the rise, or if we're just testing more, or if the tests are just getting better in finding more. Can you talk a little bit about the different types? Because you mentioned a few there. Can you kind of explain the differences?
Yes, you have tests such as on-site testing that are performed, for example, with the lateral flow test, a test that utilizes a non-toxic detergent and actually just washing the sample, and from that you get an extraction. You put that into the test, and you get a result, and that result is bankable. It is a great first indicator in the step of what that matrix you're testing for, if it doesn't indeed have contamination. They are that sensitive. The parts per billion, or in some of the tests, parts per million. They are very sensitive. So gone are the days of, as we talked earlier, of the black light type approach where it's very subjective and a qualitative type test, which they still have qualitative tests, but here you're getting, it's quantitative. It's a quantitative test. And those are the tests by which I see the industry really relying upon as being a good first indicator in the approach to testing at the feed mills.
Yeah, and they're not as complicated as they used to be, right? It's not that much training to teach your kind of the people in the control room, the sampling room, how to do these so you get really quick results, right?
Absolutely, and that's a big part of it too. Face it, they're not in the testing business, they're in the food business, and I think when you take out the steps of the many different steps that are involved in some of the testing techniques that are out there, it could lead to confusion. It could lead to complacency and strain from the process. And so that is very key in when you're looking at a mycotoxin test is, what are the steps? Is this something that the average layman can do? Or somebody that is, like I said, in the industry of feed, and they're not in the testing industry. So it really it's very important.
Yeah, definitely, and faster too, right? Because these guys, they tend to be pretty busy. So, I would think in an ideal solution,
Absolutely.
you have your truck probe. You can automate that now, so it takes multiple samples in different spots, and then you have your person, doing the test and then moving them along. Is that kind of how you guys tend to explain the workflow to people? What is kind of the idealized workflow at a feed mill?
Well, and it goes back to conversation, and that is, you have some of these locations that really have a lot of trucks. They have these trucks lined up there, and time is of importance. They need to get that load. They need to get that truck unloaded, and they need a quick, reliable answer. And these tests are designed now where not only can you get a quick, reliable answer, but you can stagger some of the tests where you're actually doing more than one truck at a time. And so that really helps in the process. They get the actionable result that they're looking for, they dump the load, and they move on to the next one. And that is very key in the determination of if they're going to do testing or who they're going to be what tests they're going to bring on board.
Mm-hmm. And there's still a place for laboratory testing, right? Especially from what I understand, if you're shipping internationally, sometimes you have to do a little bit more.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I think the key here is that you want not only an actionable result, a test that will provide an actionable result, but you want that test to have you want it to be a reproducible test, a test that you can take that reading, if you will, and take it to if you were to take it that same test down the line, you would get a like result from an outside laboratory. Now, of course, those findings will skew somewhat, but it should not change the prognosis, if you will, diagnosis of what you're looking at.
Yeah, exactly. And what's kind of like the cost difference? Because it seems like they're also getting a lot more affordable, especially when compared to sending stuff out to the lab and having someone do it. Is there a little bit of savings involved if you're doing it on site versus, sending it off to a lab to get samples done?
Absolutely, I think you win on all accords. You're getting a test result at a much cheaper cost, and you're getting it at real time. So if there is a situation that needs to where that load needs to be diverted, actionable results can take place, and at a less cost. So I think you win on all fronts there. But also, there is a time always to send to the laboratory for confirmatories, things along that line. But from a first line defense with your mycotoxin program, these tests, these tests are more than adequate, and they are, like I said, they are the first line in the defense of mycotoxin contamination testing. So
Yeah, and I hear people are now testing on both sides. So as grain comes in, and then as kind of finished product goes, or is finished product is finished and stored, I hear people are doing it at both spots, which seems like it's really kind of a situation that wouldn't be very easy to accomplish with traditional laboratory testing.
well, I think availability drives in-house diagnostics testing, and that's exactly right. I think if you have the ability to run a particular test, then it's behoove you to at least look at that as a viable option. And I think finished feed is one of those areas where there haven't been many alternative solutions other than sending it out to an outside laboratory. But now with the advent of tests from Vicam, you are able to test your finished feed product and get a viable result, an actionable result that you can work off of.
Can you go explain a little bit about like what what the process is? So I mean I have a vague idea, right? I think a lot of people do, but so after you sample grain, it goes into the bag bag house? No, the scale house. That's what we call them. And usually someone kind of performs the test there. Or what do they actually physically have to do what does an employee physically have to do to be able to do a full test in one of these lateral, what is
Flow
it called?
test.
Lateral strip? Yeah.
Lateral flow test. Well, it all starts off with the sampling. You want to make sure that you get a good sample from the truck or from whatever you're sampling. You want to get a good sample, and then you're going to grind that sample down, and that is key. You want a good representative sample, but then you want to take that sample and you're grinding down in many instances either 5 to 10 grams of product, and from that you would mix an aqueous solution into a vessel, put it on the mixer. It mixes for 30 seconds, After 30-second spin down, you would put it through a filter, and you would take 100 microliters of the extract and apply that to the test, let it incubate for 5 minutes, and place it in the reader. And after that 5 minutes, and you placing it into the reader, after about 10 seconds, you get a result. You will get a number that will tell you contamination or what the level of whatever toxin that you're testing for.
And these readers can now sense more than one mycotoxin, right? I mean, obviously you should be generally aware of the weather conditions in your area and what mycotoxins you might run into, but they can do more than one now, right?
Yes, and for example, Vicam, we have the ability from that one extraction that I spoke of, that filtered amount that comes out from that filtered sample, you can run up to 6 different mycotoxins. So it goes back to what we were talking about earlier, the time savings. Rather than do 6 workups on your tests, you would do one workup, and from that extraction, you would be able to run 6 different tests. You would incubate them, stagger them out accordingly, but you're eliminating the sampling process of grinding and spinning down. You would only have to do that one time. So yes, to answer your question, absolutely. And that's where it really comes into play as a good asset to what we're doing and bringing solutions to the industry.
Yeah, definitely. And I think solutions that are going to be more and more in demand is companies kind of, I mean, as we get better at record keeping in the industry, right? And having a kind of a supply, a traceability and a supply chain that you can now figure out exactly where grain came from and where it's going. It seems like there's going to be more and more of a demand from end users and to perform these tests, right? Because if you're making pet food and a bunch of aflatoxin gets in there, it can be a disaster.
Oh, absolutely, and that's what it is. It's a tool. It's a tool to help you manage your business, help, as you said, traceability, and to find where if there is a disconnect along the line, and take actionable steps to correct. And that's the beauty of what we're doing here is we're bringing those solutions that can help.
Yeah, definitely. And where should people start when they're kind of starting to think about, well, we need to either improve our program, update it. If it's been, 5 years, 10 years, and you haven't changed anything, you're probably out of date, right? Where should they start with that process? Reaching out to someone like you, as going online, what should they do?
Well, I think going online is always great. We do have a website that is very tutorial and will help you along. But I think it starts with at the ground level. I think either you're testing or you're not testing. If you're not testing, definitely you need to get on board. There are just advancements, as we said earlier. The advancements that are currently available make it very easy for the end user to come on board and really work their risk management, the attributes, the benefits that come with mycotoxin testing from economic standpoint and such. I think it's one of those things where it's just made it easier for the end user to come on board as far as being a viable testing center, if you will, be their own lab. And I think that's how I think the industry has evolved where we are today.
Yeah, definitely. And continues to evolve. This is going to be the toughest question, I think. And it is basically, like I said, I've been here 10 years and it's already changed so much. Where do you see the next 10 years of mycotoxin testing going? What advancements do you think are going to come along the line?
Well, I think that I think we'll start to see, first, we'll start to see more testing capabilities, different tests that come on board. And we spoke earlier about how individuals are testing currently today as far as what it entails at the feed mill. And you'll have people that might be doing maybe just the one test or maybe two tests, and they feel that is sufficient. I think that the awareness is going to grow to a point where we'll see a sort of a synergistic approach to testing, where it's not just the one test that you should be doing for aflatoxin, but you should be doing the ochratoxin. You should be doing multiple tests that really give a better picture of what you're looking at in that sample that you're testing. And that is where I see the advancements in mycotoxin testing going.
Excellent. Well, those are all the questions I have. Thank you so much for joining me today. Is there anything else you want to add, or?
No, other than I feel that, I think that with mycotoxin testing, it allows just for us to really bring a needed approach to food safety, and it helps from a regulatory standpoint, helps the folks out there economically, from a health standpoint, and bringing best product to the people. So it's a very rewarding approach, what we do to industry, and we just look forward to being of service and an asset to the customers that we serve.
Awesome and excellent. Well, thank you so much, and I really enjoyed our conversation. I hope you come back again someday, and thank you again for joining me and talking a little bit about mycotoxins.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Have a good day.